Ready? Here we go.
Different points of view and highs and lows. A new perspective everywhere you go. Open up your mind, drown out the noise, and see if this connected. And see if this connected.
What's up, fam? The mission of this Connected podcast is to connect generations and situations about faith, life, and whatever comes along the way. To not necessarily agree, but be listened to. These conversations, of course, highlight the perspective of our various guests, and you are always welcome to agree or even disagree. But as always, we hope that it is done in charity. Now, here's your host, Catholic.Dad.
Thanks again, Tony, for that intro. And fam, I have a guest this evening, or this morning, or this afternoon, or whenever you're listening to this podcast. If you're seeing this on YouTube, obviously you're seeing this beautiful lady over here. Our theme, our title for this podcast of That Was Then, This Is Now. Obviously, she's not Korean, but it's a migrant Latina in Korea. Of all places, this Connected finds a Catholic in Korea. And it's another Latina from San Bernardino. So, fam, I want to introduce to you Kimberly Rodriguez. And Kimberly, I'm going to tell people here, Kimberly is an ESL educator at a national university in South Korea. Originally from Southern California, she has called the land of the morning calm her home for the past 8 years and has lived an expat life for nearly 9. She has a strong passion for her Catholic faith, education, adventure, and fitness lifestyle. So welcome to the show, Kimberly. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we met through, again, I think it was Zoom Around the World with Mary. We prayed. We were looking for someone from Korea to pray the rosary in Korea. And they said, friends of ours in San Bernardino said, oh, I have a friend in Korea. And so here I was like, oh, great. We have a person in Korea, assuming she's Korean. and then you come on, it's like, well, she does look kind of Korean. She does look kind of Korean. And then it's like, her last name is Rodriguez. It's like, I don't think she's Korean. But you prayed the rosary in Korean. And I was like, wow, that was amazing. And that's how we started. That's how we met. And since then, I've listened to you and prayed with you and some girl named Catherine, whom we know. Shout out to Catherine. You guys prayed the rosary amazingly beautiful on Zoom, actually on Instagram. Yes. And if you guys follow Kimberly on Instagram, this is how Catholic she is. She literally has a PDF on her bio. Like, if you've ever wanted to know or learn how to pray the rosary, just go to her bio. There's a PDF on how to pray the rosary.
It's very easy. It's accessible because a lot of people don't know how to pray the rosary. It's intimidating. So me and Catherine kind of found that source, and we decided, you know what, we'll just make it accessible for everyone, and we put it on our links, and now you can just click and pray, because we used to do it every day. We've been so busy that we haven't been able to, but it's there for anyone that wants to pray the rosary. Has all the mysteries in Spanish and English.
Right, and maybe one day in Korean. But hey, hey, and the recording of this moment, this is 10 p.m. here in Los Angeles, California, and in Korea, it is what time?
It's 2 p.m. Friday.
2 p.m. Friday. So you're actually in the future right now. We're still Thursday over here, and you're already in the future.
It's looking bright. It's looking bright.
Yeah, it is looking bright. So hold on, I'm gonna ask, honey, what did you need? I'm all distracted. I was like, I thought my wife wanted something, but hey, let's talk about being Catholic and being an expat and what does that mean for some of our listeners? What is an expat?
So an expat is someone that has chosen to live abroad, an expatriate. Even though I'm not an expatriate, I love America. I'm very American, but I've just chosen to live abroad, and I get to use that. I do have some privilege, right? Being an American, living in a foreign country. So using that to live abroad and work and experience life in a different way that I wouldn't be able to experience it in America.
I'm gonna go off on a tangent there because when I went off to college, I went back to the Philippines to go to college for 4 years, and having a blue passport, an American citizen, afforded me so many privileges that we do take for granted, the ability to travel. I did not realize that people in other countries needed visas to go from place to place, whereas as an American citizen, you're almost afforded to be able to freely travel anywhere in the world.
Yeah, it's a lot of countries, of countries that we're allowed to go to. So,
yeah. And so how did you end up in Korea?
So I actually had this seed planted when I was in university. I went to Cal State San Bernardino, and I worked on campus in the disability office. And while I was working there, it was my last year of studying. My friend, my coworker, was talking about going to Korea when she graduated. She wasn't due to graduate for a full year after I graduated. So I thought, oh, Korea, that's crazy. Why would you want to go to Korea? Fast forward maybe 6, 7, 8 months later, I messaged her and she had graduated, and I was like, hey, do you still want to go to Korea? Because I will go with you. And she was like, yeah, I do actually want to go. I was like, let's research this together. Let's make this happen, and let's go to Korea. So from that little seed that she had just planted one day in the office, I had worked so hard that year after graduation, and I was working 3 jobs at one time, and it was really tiring. I was living at home with my parents. I had to commute to work, and I was working in San Bernardino, working in Beaumont, working in Hemet. I'm actually from San Jacinto. So San Jacinto. And it was just a lot. It was a lot of commuting and a lot of work. And I thought, you know what, I'll just go to Korea for a year. And, I've always loved Asia and Asian things. So I thought, you know what, I could do a year, and then I'll come back and I'll do grad school, and, I'll start my life. Well, 1 year turned into 2 years. And my second year, I started doing a master's degree online through Cal State San Bernardino. And then I just ended up staying for 4 years, left for a year, and then somehow ended up back in Korea. And it's been another 4 years. Wow. So that's how I ended up in Korea.
And so what is it that you do? What do you do how do you make a living?
Yes. So I teach English. I started working in Korea as an elementary school educator, and I worked in the public school system with the EPIC program. To do that, you need a bachelor's degree and a TEFL or TESOL certificate. So I had all of that, and I came and I taught kids, and I got tired, and then I left and I traveled, and then I came back, and I'm teaching adults now. And I work in a university. I work in one of the best universities in Busan. Busan is the second largest city in Korea. And it's a great school. My students are pretty good. I post some funny things that they post for homework assignments sometimes on my Instagram. But yeah, it's great. You do have to have a bachelor's degree. You do have to be from a native English speaking country. Korea only recognizes 7 countries that are on that list. So USA, Canada, Ireland, England, Australia, So, yeah, there's 7. So whatever those 7 are, those are the ones that they allow to come teach here. And yeah, it's a really nice job. I love it. I love teaching kids, and now I really enjoy teaching adults. Have a lot of interesting conversations when you're physically in the classroom. This year has been a wash. I haven't met my students in over a year and a half. Wow. So it's really weird to be online, but that's how it is this year.
Now, for most of us, you know, as Catholics, as a Latina, as a Filipino, we're very much family oriented. And yes. One of the hugest things as a Catholic is family and moving away from family. How did you, I mean, I couldn't imagine moving away and being by myself for a few months, let alone 8 years. I mean, what do you do? How do you cope? I mean, I have so many questions. It's like, do you miss the food? I mean, what do you eat? I mean, do you miss tamales? Do you miss tacos? I mean, is there pozole over there?
No.
Like, are there tortillas? What's going on? I mean, it's like, that's Korea.
Yeah, so many things to say. First, I will say that it was really difficult. It wasn't difficult to make the decision to move abroad. It was difficult realizing and getting used to not seeing my family every day. That was hard. And it's usually not so bad. It's really bad during holidays, especially during Christmas, when that's a really big holiday for us, you know, as Catholics. I really miss that. So to kind of cope with that, I started hosting my own Christmas parties every year. And I just have a lot of friends over, and we do a get together, you know, so that I don't feel that loneliness and that void of missing my family and friends. But the great thing about the 21st century is that, you know, we have these amazing tech things. We have Zoom, we have Skype, we have FaceTime, and we have texting, we have emailing. You know, we can do so many things to communicate with our loved ones when we're not close to them. So my mom learned how to use the computer so that she could talk to me on Skype and Facebook, and she made a Facebook so she could talk to me, which is the only reason I can't delete Facebook, because it's the only way I can talk to my mom. And yeah, so it's been challenging, especially this year. The last time I was home was December 2019, right before the pandemic happened. And I usually don't go home for Christmas because I work, but I just was like, I'm just gonna go for like a week and a half, and hopefully I don't get in trouble. And I somehow was able to do it. And I'm very grateful. I thank God all the time, because I can't imagine, the last time I would have seen my family would have been June 2019. So that would be two years exactly right now. And it's hard. I have 2 nieces, and they're growing up, and they're 2 and 4, and not being able to see them grow up, it's hard.
How long was the flight?
Flight to Korea depends on the route you take. Usually it's about 10 hours. It could be like 10, 11, 12 hours, depending on layovers.
So you're stuck in a tube for 10 to 12 hours, folks, if you're going to Korea.
It's boring.
Just plan on
tiring.
Watching about 3 or 4 movies.
Yeah, trying to sleep. And I'm short. So I'm short, and I'm still uncomfortable in the chairs. So I can't imagine how tall people feel.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's just so many questions of someone who has decided to live abroad. Mm-hmm. And, you know, here's the one thing, because migration and immigration is a huge thing within our community here. Mm-hmm. Do you consider yourself as an kind of an immigrant to Korea? I mean, is that something that you're looking at? It's like, because you're obviously enjoying it. From looking at your story on your Instagram, you're obviously just living the life in Korea. Now, here's the thing. Is that something that you're looking at as like, I might actually immigrate here and just live? Or is this just a working thing for me? And the other thing is, are the Korean people welcoming of immigrants, or is it we're a closed society where Koreans are for Korea? Korea is for Koreans.
Very good questions. So I have never considered myself an immigrant here solely because of the situation with my work. I do yearly contracts. I'm fireable at any time. So with that, it's really hard to plan to live here for life unless I were to change my visa. The type of visa that I have allows me to work in one specific field. And I'm only allowed to work in that specific field. If you're caught doing anything on the side, any side hustles, you will get fired and you get deported. So they really cracked the whip. The thing too with that is I'm an English teacher in Korea. An English teacher in Korea has a lot of privilege and has a lot of prestige versus someone that is an actual migrant worker. Now, migrant workers in Korea are actually, they're treated really poorly, if I'm honest. There are a lot of Southeast Asian people, people from Vietnam, people from China, people from Thailand, people from the Philippines. And they come here because they can make a better living for their families. And they do actually move here to live here, to send money to their families. I'm very fortunate that I don't have to be in that situation. You know, I have helped my family in ways when I've been able to, but my purpose of being in Korea is not to provide for my family, whereas these people are here solely to provide for their families. So they sacrifice a lot living here, you know, being away from their families and really just working so hard. The second thing you brought up was how does Korean society view, you know, these types of people and view me as a foreigner. I've lived here for a long time and I have a very different experience than maybe some of my friends who are married to Koreans and that speak Korean fluently. I don't. I should, but I don't. So it's a whole other issue.
You're like, I'm an English teacher.
Yeah, and in fairness, when I started working here, they told me, oh, don't learn Korean. You don't need it. And I was like, but I want to learn. And they would patronize me. Oh, that's so cute. Oh, it's so cute that you want to learn Korean. And they wouldn't encourage it. So it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. And I was like, I'll learn basic survival Korean. So with people that have lived here for a long time, I know people that have lived here for 13, 14, 15, 20 years. Maybe their visa is different, but the thing about Korean culture and Korean society is you'll always be an outsider unless you're a Korean. Even the kids that are mixed, they're still kind of considered outsiders. And it's just mostly because Koreans are, you know, they're one type of people, they're Korean. You will see more mixed families these days. You see some Filipino Koreans, some Vietnamese Koreans, but those kids are, I've seen those children be bullied in school when I taught elementary school, and that was really difficult because we're used to seeing a mixed society in America. It's normal to have a mixed family. It's not weird to us, but in Korea, they're still trying to wrap their heads around it. Yeah. So you are treated a little bit differently. You don't have the same rights as Koreans. So even if you're living here, married, have a visa as a permanent resident, still don't have voting rights. You still can't do certain things that Koreans can do. You can't own businesses unless you have a certain type of visa, and a Korean has to actually be the name on the business. And, you know, I could be wrong on some of those things, so I don't know fully, but that's from what I have come to understand from living here. So it is a bit of a different experience for me being American living here versus a Filipino living here or a Vietnamese person living here. So it's very different.
And it's so cool that you share that. I think our listeners would probably be able to appreciate that because as an American, you know, as me saying as an American, people in Korea would look at me and say, well, no, you're not American, you're Filipino. Even if I was born in the United States, even if I had generations of Filipinos born in the United States, they would look at me and say, no, you're still Filipino. And I think a lot of people don't realize that most countries in the world are like that. I mean, for the longest time, Italy was like that. Most European nations were like that. Japan is like that. Most Asian countries are like that. I can speak for the Philippines, they're not. But majority of countries aren't like the United States, where you can come and become an American. Now we have our faults and we have our problems, but gosh darn it, it's like, at least I could look at someone, it's like, oh yeah, they're a bunch of Americans, bunch of mixed people. And it's not like, it's like this when I traveled outside of the United States. This was the problem with Americans. We wanted to be, we thought that every place in the world was like the United States. With the freedoms, with the freedoms that you thought you could do anything that you want, not realizing that no, you can't do that in that country, because they have different laws, different cultures, different rules. So different things. But you said you have certain privileges because you're an English teacher. I want to ask this before I ask a couple of things, because I'll forget and Tony will get upset. He asked, would you consider yourself as someone who is a thrill seeker?
A thrill seeker.
And he said, why or why not?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm gonna go jump off of a bridge just for the thrill of it. I have bungee jumped twice though, so I mean, maybe I would. I guess a bit of a thrill seeker. Yeah, I enjoy experiencing new things. I believe that life is meant to be lived with reason, obviously. But yeah, I enjoy a thrill. I enjoy an adventure. I'm always seeking something. I'm always seeking to learn something new and experience new things. So yeah.
Well, you're always so vibrant. You're always so happy. You're always so excited. And but there's the other question is, how do you find all those interesting places you visit that we see on your Instagram stories?
Yeah, so I guess nobody knows. I have gotten really into cycling, specifically long distance cycling, during this past year of the pandemic. Not being able to travel out of Korea. I usually travel out of Korea at least twice a year because of my vacation that I get. So during the pandemic, I've decided to travel around Korea. And it's really cool, actually. I have it right here. In Korea, they have this really amazing little book. It is a bike cycling passport. And it has all these different little trails in it. And you can just go and you stamp each little booth that you stop at. It's a cute little red phone booth and it has a stamp in it. And that's kind of how I've discovered all these beautiful places. This is the map of all the different routes that they have. And I only have 3 left to do for the whole country. And it's amazing. It's such a fun thing to do. And that's just kind of how I've been sightseeing and enjoying Korea. Lots of really beautiful places. It's a small country, but it's a really beautiful country. And it's very easy to travel because public transportation is phenomenal in this country.
It's like Southern California where you have to have a car.
No. You take a bus from like Hemet to San Bernardino, it'll take you like 4 hours. But in Korea, you can go from Busan to Seoul in like 4 hours. And that's a really long distance. So it makes sense that it would be that far.
High-speed train?
High-speed train, 2.5 hours. Slow bus, 5 hours. You can take the slow train, 4.5 hours for a slow bus, 4 hours for the slow train. You can take a 1-hour flight. You can get around everywhere. And public transportation is very cheap, very cheap. We have a subway in the major cities. Yeah, taxis are pretty affordable. So yeah.
Is it crowded?
These days, no, because of the pandemic. Kind of love it. I'm not gonna lie.
It's like, no, everyone's inside because of the pandemic. And talking about pandemic, how was it? You know, you were stuck there. I mean, we watched in the news with the issues and the COVID outbreaks in Seoul, Korea. I mean, how was it?
Yeah.
What happened?
So, you know, my experience is really different than yours. That's one thing that kind of makes me sad. I experience so many things differently than Americans do because I'm not in America. You know, a lot of the social justice issues that we've had in America the past year it's been really different for us in Korea. We've had people helping protest for those things, but it's just not the same. And with the pandemic, you know, we never had a nationwide lockdown like you guys did. We never had a pushback from wearing masks. We didn't have panic buying or panic shopping for toilet paper, for gasoline. Those things just don't happen here. The only thing that did happen was there was a panic buy for masks. And to kind of help that problem, the government basically mandated a system, and it's a brilliant system if you think about it. So depending on the last number of your birth year, so let's say your birth year is 90, right? So you're 0. So they had like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you would go on the last number or the last number of your birthday to go to the clinic to get masks. And you could only get 2 a day, and you could only get them once a week. And it would pretty much just give you a mask for the week or whatever. And they did that for maybe a month until the mask hype calmed down. And then the mask hype calmed down and there was a bunch of masks available and they got rid of that system. They have implemented really strict social distancing. The country goes through different phases. We just went back from a level 2. A level 3 is the highest in Korea. We were at a level 2. We're now at a 1.5. Businesses were only allowed to be opened until 10 p.m. And that included restaurants, cafes, bars. All clubs were closed. So for nightlife, those businesses really were impacted. But now it's until 11 p.m. So it's a little bit more comfortable. We have to wear masks everywhere. Only a very small percentage of the population is vaccinated right now. We only have age 60 and above being vaccinated. We only have 1 vaccine out here. We have AstraZeneca, and that's it. There are talks about maybe getting Pfizer. So yeah, it's a very different experience. I am a government employee, so I will be asked to take the vaccine. I won't really have the option of not taking it. Whereas like in America, you can choose which one you want and you can choose if you want to get it or not. In Korea, I won't have that choice. I'll have to get it. I'm really praying that I can get Pfizer because I feel conflicted about AstraZeneca. Even though the Pope has said it's okay, but you know, I still feel weird about it.
There's a Catholic in her coming out. But
it's such a scary thing, you know?
And you're so young, and then all the talk, all the issues that people are talking about that just are scaring each other. But you know, these are the things that, I mean, you're mentioning. You don't have a choice. And when the government says this is it, this is it. When the government says no, you cannot go out, you cannot go out. And people
follow it.
And people follow it.
People push back, but the pushback in Korea it looks different than what it looks like in America. You will see a couple times people on the subway without masks, but everybody looks at them and everybody just looks at them. And then eventually they put their mask on, you know, there have been some fights, but you don't see them that often. It's not the Wild West like in America.
It's a little bit more organized, as to say.
Yeah, it's an organized. Yeah, it's a collectivist culture. Everything is for the greater good of your community. And so with the masks, everybody wears a mask because they want to respect the people around them. Everybody does social distancing for the most part. These days it's getting warmer, people are out and about, but for the most part, people follow rules pretty well, I would say.
And I think historically that the reason for that collectivist attitude is in the survival after the Korean War, to come out of that and really commit to improving that nation. And wow, what a great improvement. I mean, from utter destruction to now we're driving Hyundais. I mean, who would have thought that they're like a developed nation competing with Japan? Who would have thought? But here, you're a Catholic in Korea. How hard is it? How hard is it to practice your faith in Korea? I mean, what's the nearest church? It's like.
So I am very, very, very blessed that there is a Catholic church just 5 minutes away from my house. With that being said, the nearest church with an English mass is an hour away. So I usually go every Sunday in Korean. There is an app in Korea that has all the readings in Korean, and then underneath it has all the readings in English. I discovered that the priest at my church speaks English, which is really great because it makes me feel like I have a friend. And actually there's 3 priests at that church and I have nicknames for all of them. Sometimes I put them in my stories because they're just really cute. One of them, Sleepy Priest, because he's always sleeping on the altar. He's an old man, he's really cute, and he's always like sleeping, like always. So I call him Sleepy Priest. He doesn't speak English, but the other 2 priests, Father Thomas and Father Peter, they both speak English. Father Thomas lived in America. I think he lived in somewhere on the East Coast for a few years. And then the other priest, he's really young, so I call him Young Priest because he's young. And he speaks English really well. So it just makes me really happy to be able to talk to someone in English, especially for confession, or if I just want to have that sense of community after Mass. They always say hello to me in English and they talk to me for a little bit. So that's really nice. But it is difficult being a Catholic here, just because, I think because of location. I don't know any other Catholics in Korea that I'm friends with, that I can genuinely say I'm friends with. None of my friends, I love my friends here, don't get me wrong, absolutely adore them, but they're not religious. They're not Catholic, but they're very respectful of my faith. And they know Sunday's Kimmy's church day. We don't ask her to do stuff until after 12. And, you know, they respect if on Friday nights I go to adoration, like, oh, Kimmy's busy on Friday night. Can't bother Kimmy. But yeah, there's not a lot of Catholics in my area. There are a lot of Catholics in Seoul. There's a group at a church that I usually go to that has English Mass and Spanish Mass in Italian. That's the International Catholic Church. And that church has a great community. If I lived in Seoul, I would definitely be part of Unitas because they just seem like they're a really great group. They do Bible studies and they go to lunch and they do prayer stuff together. And I don't have any of that here in Busan. It's really sad. And because I don't have that, I have sought that virtually. And I'm very thankful to have Catherine and some other friends in the States that kind of keep me rooted in faith because I don't have that community here. And I know you don't need to have that physical community, but you kind of do. You kind of do need that community. It's really hard being here alone and trying to explain things to my close friends, and they get it, but they don't really get it.
I think you're weird.
They don't think I'm weird, I don't think. You know, everyone knows that I'm pretty religious. I'm not a shy person to talk about faith. I pray before I eat in public. I talk about my faith in bars, in restaurants. Like, if you engage me in a conversation about Catholicism or what you don't understand, I'm very willing and open to talk to you about it. And I love that. I love being able to have that banter or that conversation with people, and plant little seeds because you don't know how they're going to grow. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but just plant them, sprinkle them around. So
you're literally being St. Francis de Sales, just going out into the Far East and planting seeds of faith, but doing it kindly, nicely, and sharing that faith. Now, because Korea is not a Christian nation, are they a religious nation? Is there a religion that they have? Is there a national religion?
So Korean society is kind of founded on Confucianism and Buddhism. That's kind of a reason why they're also collectivist. But that being said, you see a lot of Buddhist temples. So there are a lot of people that are Buddhist. There are a lot of Christians, actually. There are a lot of Christians.
More than Catholics.
And there are a good chunk of Catholics as well. But I would say the majority, I feel like the majority is probably Christians, non-denominational. We have a lot of Protestant, a lot of Lutheran, Presbyterian, and then we have like cults. There are cults here. Cults? Yeah, well, not Pentecostals, cults, like actual cults, like Sinchonji. We have God the Mother Church. Yeah, and you can just Google those and see what they're about. But they're the ones that they stop you on the street and they try to like tell you to come to their church. And evangelization, I get that, but it's just very interesting how they do it. Because they'll tell you you're wrong right to your face, and you're just like, okay, thank you. Have a great day. I'll pray for you.
Makes me want to go there just for that.
I never get stopped. My friend does every time. And I'm like, why don't they stop me? I want to talk to these people. I want to engage, but they don't. They know I'm too up there. I'm not up there, but they know that I'm wrong.
They're like, oh, she has that aura.
Yeah, I heard that they do. They look for specific things to try and target you. And I guess I look confident in that way that they don't engage with me. So I'm a little sad about it. I just get the Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't even get the Mormons, and I love the Mormons. So it's weird.
Wait, Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yeah, we have them out here too.
Wow, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere. They used to come to my door. I had to be very polite. After the second time the lady came over, I'm like, look, this pamphlet, I'm just going to throw it in the trash. Like, I'm really not going to use it. Please don't come back. I'm not going to leave my church. And she was just like, oh, well, I just want to give you, I'm like, I really respect you and your beliefs, but I'm not going to listen to it. And so she was like, okay. And she stopped coming. I'm going to do it in a charitable way. I don't want to be mean, but you have to be firm.
That's how you're supposed to be as a Catholic, be charitable, right?
Yeah. Hard sometimes, but try.
It is. You're way out there in Korea. You're practicing your faith in a place that people usually aren't very religious. You're out there by yourself. I mean, how long are you going to stay out there, Kim?
That's like the $1 million question. My mom asks me that every single time I call. So I just don't call home that often. That and when are you getting married? So, I
wasn't going to ask that, but since you brought it up, when are you going to get married, Kim?
Oh gosh, that's the other $1 million question. When God sends me that person, that's when I'm ready. So what was that first question you asked? Now I forgot.
Well, what I asked was, how long are you going to be there?
Oh yeah.
The reason why I ask is this. My wife loves Japan, loves Korea, and the reason for that, she says people are nicer. And I'm like, well, you haven't met the right ones, but she likes the whole organization thing, whereas when we're here in the United States, everything is so busy, everything is so fast paced. Is it similar to there? Is everyone just in a rush, or do people take time to breathe, or are they just like us here?
I think they're kind of like us in the States. They're workaholics in Korea. They've had to make laws that prohibit you from staying after work, because before, if you were working in an office and your boss stayed until 10 p.m., guess what? You clocked out at 5, but you're not going home until 10 p.m.
What?
Because if you leave, it's going to look bad on you, and the people you work with are going to think that you're not a good worker. So with that workaholism, issue, people are not that efficient because they're wasting a lot of time making it look like they're working. Something that can be done in one day is done in a week. So they do work very hard. But there's also a lot of things that they are quick fix people. So like if you have a problem, they'll do like, oh, there's some mold on your wall. Instead of going and scraping out the mold so that it's never a problem again, oh, we'll just re-wallpaper it. Okay, sure, re-wallpaper it. Oh, your water's not working. Oh, we'll fix it. And they like twist one thing. Oh, it's working now. It's not going to work tomorrow. The next day it doesn't work. It's not working again. Oh, and they'll twist it again instead of just fixing it from the beginning.
See, it works now.
Yeah. So little things like that, they kind of get on your nerves, but it's not that big of a deal. I would say I love living here. Despite those little issues, I don't really know when I'll leave. When I came back this second time, because I was here for 4 years, I left for a year. And I didn't plan on coming back to Korea. The reason that I came back is because I had a friend that was working at my university, and I just messaged him on a whim and said, hey, I'm looking for a job. I don't know if you have anything open at your university. Hook me up if you do. And lo and behold, I was very fortunate. He did have a connection. I didn't know he was the hiring coordinator. He actually got me my job. And he liked me because I was young, I had a master's degree, and I checked all the boxes. You know, they only had one other woman working in the department. So I was diversity, and also I was, young and a woman. So they were like, yeah, let's bring her in. She's going to be good with the students. So that's the reason I came back. My plan was to stay 2 years and then go to a different country. But this job is so good.
You live in a high rise.
I mean, it's not really a high rise. Like, I live a high life, but yeah.
I mean, we watch, your Instagram stories and like Tony and I were like, why can't we live like that? I mean, we're living in a desert over here, and she's
really pretty where I live.
Yeah, it's like she has an elevator. Like,
yeah,
it's an elevator. It's like the girl has an elevator to her house.
And I have a really nice mountain view, and I do live on top of a mountain, so it's a bit of a hike to get up here, but it's worth it. And it's 30 minutes by bicycle to the beach. There's a mountain in my backyard. I can hike at any time. It's a really good situation. So I think it would take a lot to make me want to leave this comfort zone that I'm in. And I'm in the process of discerning that right now. Because how we talked about it, how it's difficult to be Catholic here. If there are certain things that I want in my life, like I feel like I am being called to marriage, and I feel like I am being called to family life. If I want those things, I just think they're not going to happen for me in Korea. So maybe I need to move myself into a better situation so that God can work in that way. Because been here 8 years, hasn't happened. And I just feel like it's probably not going to happen here, which is okay. But, I just got to figure out what my plan is. Do I leave? Do I stay? Maybe something will happen.
Because you can exchange all of that mountain view, the 30-minute to the beach, to San Bernardino.
No.
Which is one giant sand pit.
Oh no, I don't know about that.
We're not trying to talk you out from. But I am so glad that you brought that up, that you are open to that vocation, that you've discerned vocation of marriage and having children and all those things. I did want to ask, it is the month of June and is Pride Month, and that is a big issue, a big topic within our faith. And within other Christian denominations, and where we have parades and things like this. And you had mentioned that you have Christian denominations over there who are obviously not like Catholics, who are really calm. It's like, oh, whatever. So do they have issues regarding Pride Month over there? Are rainbow flags put out? Is the government okay with it? Are the people okay with it? Or what is the status of LGBTQ plus individuals in Korea that you've experienced?
That I've experienced, yeah, I'm gonna say that they are not open to it in Korea. Korea is a very conservative country. Just the way it was founded and all their beliefs, it is a very conservative country, and the current president is against all of that. He's gotten a lot of, pushback because of it, but what can he do? You can't please everyone. And in Korea, it's the same as in the States. You're always going to have pushback from another group and another party. They do have things that they do during Pride Month. Obviously, because of the pandemic, they're not really doing a lot. But in the past, they have had Pride parades and Pride events. And I have been to one before. I have some of my closest friends, they do identify in that community. Mm-hmm. And so I have gone before because I was curious. I wanted to see what it was like. I wanted to see what it was about. I think it's important to learn about different people and where they're coming from. And then you can live your life, as we should. But I saw some pretty bad things when I was there. There was a lot of protests. Pretty much what happened was the center of this field was where everybody was having the event. And then completely around it, there were police lined up as a barricade to protect the people that were at the Pride event. Beyond the police, there was thousands of Christian protesters that were putting up hateful banners and hateful things. They were throwing water, throwing bottles. I was talking to one of my friends and I saw a protester jump the barricade and spit on her. Ooh. And it was appalling. Like, she's still a human and didn't deserve that. You shouldn't disrespect someone. You can disagree with their beliefs and you can disagree with what they're saying, but to physically harm them or to do something so hateful, it was just really sickening. And it just made me so sad. It just made me so sad that I had to witness that, but also that even happened to her, because that sucks. It's hard to navigate life. And, when you're having that kind of situation happening, it's even worse. So unfortunately, they're not very open to LGBTQ here. It's a big issue. It's one of those hush things. People are out, but they're not really out. Foreigners are, because I feel like we kind of get a pass because we're not Korean. But I don't know anyone that's actually openly LGBT at their jobs. I think it's a private thing at work. Just because of how Koreans are so conservative, you're not really sure how they're going to take it and if they'll fire you, because there are no anti-discrimination laws in Korea. You can be fired for anything. You're discriminated just solely because you're not Korean or they don't like your look. So yeah, it's an issue here. It's a very sensitive issue, I would say. This year, they're not doing anything. I think there's small events happening in little safe places, but nothing major, like in public, like before.
And how about, since we're talking about that and other controversial topics, well, what about the topic of abortion? Is that something that is an issue there? Is that welcomed? Is that not allowed? Or?
Yeah, so sadly, abortion was just put into being okay in Korea. Not that long ago, it was voted in so that it can be possible. Before it was illegal to do an abortion, they were still happening illegally. You had to have a medical reason to have an abortion. And now they're in the process of changing. Like, I think it's been voted that it will be okay now, that if you want to get an abortion, you can just go and get one. But before, it was one of those, I have a life-threatening issue going on, so I have to get this abortion. But most of the situations for that were like young kids getting pregnant, like high school students getting pregnant and their parents forcing them to get abortions. Korea is not good with single parents. And unfortunately, when women get pregnant here and the man doesn't want anything to do with them, the women are put in a really difficult situation because they don't get any support from that family. So it is very difficult to be a single mother here. So you don't see it very often. When you do see it, it's really beautiful because obviously it's life, and they're doing their job. It's a tough situation with abortion here.
And it sounds to me like it's not a moral issue, but it's an issue with finances and shame and
it's a shame culture. Sadly, it is a shame culture. And they're so obsessed with bloodline. Even adoption and foster care are not popular things here in Korea. I think back in February, my friend runs a podcast as well, and he talked about a young girl that was adopted by a family, and they killed her. The foster adoptive parents, they tortured this poor little girl. She was like 1 or 2 years old, and they did so many horrendous things to her because they needed 2 kids. They had 1 daughter. They needed a second kid so that they could get from the government money to live in a bigger house, because that's how Korea works. The more kids you have, the bigger your house. And right now, Korea, their birth rate is at a serious decline. So they're doing everything they can to kind of push people to have more kids. So one of those things is, if you have more than 2, we're going to give you a stipend or some money so that you can get a bigger apartment. This family wanted a bigger apartment, so they adopted a girl, didn't take care of her. She ended up dying. And the whole system is pretty bad because they just said, we'll just send people to check more often. Okay, I don't know.
Crazy. That is so weird.
Yeah, but it's because of bloodline. They're very serious about their bloodline being pure. So with that, single mothers, it's almost impossible for them to get married, because what man is going to want this other kid that is not physically their kid? It's a big problem. There's a lot of layers. No society, no country is perfect. These are just some of the social issues that Korea has. And I could be wrong on some of this, but these are things that I've heard in the news and things that I've come to hear and know. So,
well, definitely something to ponder and something to think about and something to pray about. All those people who are struggling, and for our listeners to reflect on that no matter where you go in the world, there are issues, and there are social justice issues, and there are social justice concerns that we need to fight for and look at and expand our horizons, just like you are. We would have never learned all these things unless you came on the show and share that with us, about your experiences in Korea. All our experiences with Korea, and most of our listeners probably are thoughts of Korea is probably their Hyundai, their Kias, and BTS, which
BTS, baby.
I had to mention BTS for Catherine, because if I didn't, she'd probably kick my butt.
If we don't, the army will come for us.
Exactly. BTS army. But that is one thing. It's a lot of young people are totally in love with BTS. I mean, is that the same in Korea, or are they like totally crazy about BTS?
I think Korean people like them, but they're not obsessed like the way the world is right now. I mean, the BTS meals are a big thing right now, but what people are doing is they're going to McDonald's, they're getting a BTS meal, and they're saving the little brown bag and they're selling them to people in other countries because they know they can make money. It's like a little brown paper lunch bag is like going for 20-40 bucks. What? I mean, that's what I should be doing, get a side hustle, but I don't eat McDonald's, so I'm not gonna go buy a
and you are totally into fitness, as you said earlier, totally into fitness, and that's because you've always been into fitness, or because you're in Korea and everyone's trying to be fit?
Actually, in Korea, fitness is a luxury. Like, gyms are a luxury. They're very expensive. So what they have, everybody walks here. So there's lots of walking paths all throughout the cities. I live by a stream, which I sometimes post on my Instagram. There's a little stream, and there's a bike path and a walking path. And the evening and the morning are the times to go out and see everyone walking their dogs. And I chose to have a more active lifestyle during the pandemic. So it's relatively new. I have always been active. I used to do boxing when I first moved here. So I did boxing for about a year and a half. And then I kind of took a little break, and then I started doing like personal training at the gym. And that kind of just turned into, well, let me do running, and okay, now let me do cycling long distance. So I'm in a little bit of everything. It's just, I have nothing else to do. So all my work is online. I have a lot of free time. So I try to maximize it and be a healthy person. And also you just feel good. Yeah,
and you're having a great time. You're single, you're living life. You're in a wonderful country that affords that. You're living in you have an elevator, which
it is a luxury. Okay. I mean, I live on like the 8th floor, and if I had to take those stairs, I would. But why?
I have an elevator.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes if I have to make my steps, I try to get 10,000 steps at least every day. And if I'm desperate, I'll just go up and down the stairs a couple times.
So Kim, what advice do you have for people? A lot of our listeners are in high school or young adults who may want to pursue a dream similar to yours and doing this. What advice do you have for young Catholics and young Christians who might want to travel outside of the United States, outside of their comfort zone? What tips do you have for them?
I would say, without a doubt, do it. Travel all that you can, every opportunity. You don't have to go abroad to travel. You can travel domestic. If you're afraid to go somewhere with a friend. Go somewhere even just an hour away. Take the train or drive an hour somewhere that you've never been and explore it, because that's how you get your feet wet, and that's how you get that desire and that taste for it. I had never lived abroad before until I moved to Korea, and it was scary moving to another country where I didn't speak the language. But it's definitely not something that everyone can do. I will say that. Some people are just so connected to their family that it would be really difficult for them to do it. But if you can talk to them constantly like I do, then you'll probably be okay. But I would say definitely go for it. If you don't have the money to do it, just travel locally, go somewhere new within your area. Doesn't have to be expensive to travel. You can stay in hostels. They're not like the movies. You can meet a lot of people while you're there. You can cook while you're there to save money. So many things that you can do to make travel a reality. And then always, thank God for being able to have those opportunities, because I know I do. I'm very fortunate that I've been able to be here and live the life that I have. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have faith in God and his plan for me. So Definitely do it. I tell everyone, like, travel, do it. You have to do it.
That's so true. And as you're young, experience that life, bring God with you.
Yes.
Plant those seeds wherever you go, because as you get older, all those stories that Kim's going to have, she's going to be able to share that with so many other people and share where she found Christ in those experiences. And so if you don't ever step out of your comfort zone, fam, then you'll never have any stories to tell. Yeah.
Get out of the comfort zone. It is so safe and so easy to be in the comfort zone. You need to grow. Everyone needs to grow. And the best way to grow is to do something that you're even just slightly comfortable with.
Right.
Just
you guys are sent out like the disciples, like saints that you are, to go out to the world. And here's my thing. Gone are the days where you're sent out to the world to convert countries and nations. You're just out to convert the next person who you interact with. Just like you said, you're going out and you're wanting someone to ask you a question.
Yeah.
But it's someone who sees you, your friends who are not religious, but they see you and they respect the fact that you pray before meals. And they respect the fact that Sunday before noon don't bother you because you're going to go to mass. That is witnessing. And that is what's amazing. That's why I asked you to come on the show, is because that is beautiful. Because so many people will travel away. And so many of our young people do travel away, but they forget that they travel with God and they bring God with them. And I'm glad that you came on to share with people that you went away for many years, but you didn't leave your family and you didn't leave Jesus behind. You actually brought them with you, and you brought Christ with you, and you're going to mass, you're living out your faith, and you're actually still sharing it. And that's what a disciple, that's what an apostle is supposed to be. So Kim, do you have any parting words? Because I want to thank you for being a great apostle to Korea. Saint Kimberly, apostle to Korea.
Oh gosh. Yeah, right. I'm so far from being a saint. I wish, I pray, but I don't know. Just thank you for having me on here. I hope that I didn't talk bad about Korea. That was not my intent. I was just sharing my experiences. So don't come for me if you're obsessed with like K-dramas and BTS, because it's not like that here in Korea. There's a lot of issues in every country, but it's a beautiful place to live. And as you were saying, go with Christ. The one thing that I love about all my adventures is that even when I first decided to move here, when I found out the name of my city, the first thing I did was search if there was a Catholic church in my town. And I was so happy that there was. And I was like, I don't care if it's in Korean, I'm going to go. And, remember, you're going with God everywhere you go. So yeah, just don't forget that he's always with you, even when you forget him. Exactly. We do sometimes, but he's always there. Yeah. Always there.
And I just want to say the last thing, because you said about the protest there and a lot of Christian denominations who were yelling and were very angry. I just want to leave us with this thought, that it's very hard to preach love when you're professing hate. So if we're truly being Christ-like and we're preaching love, then we shouldn't be living out hate. We should be loving more and hating less. And that's how we're going to be able to turn this world around, is love more. That's because that's what Jesus asked us to do, is to follow his greatest commandment, which is love. So thank you so much, Kim, for joining us. Fam, that's all we have for this episode of Korea, the Latina migrant in Korea. Again, fam, if you enjoyed listening to our banter here, our rambling on and on, because that's what our podcast does, is we just talk and just have conversations. Send us an email at catholic.dad@gmail.com or DM us on our podcast on Instagram at catholic.dad or disconnected. I don't know where we're at. Also, like us on our YouTube channel. I think Tony is going to tell me to ring that bell, click subscribe, whatever. Just try to find us. It's called Disconnected Podcast. And as usual, don't forget to donate to this podcast. We are trying to send some people and support them in their faith life. So 100% of anything that you send us goes to other young people who are trying to live out their faith. So give us a hit on that Patreon, whatever it is. Tony knows how to do that. Why do I always throw Tony into the mix here? He's going to hate me. But anyways, remember, friends, live a life of holiness. We'll be praying for you. Please pray for us. And most importantly, be blessed and be third. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Different points of view and highs and lows. A new perspective everywhere you go. Open up your mind and drown out the noise of different generations of the girls and boys. So sit back and relax, this is Cat, the podcast. Don't overreact if these thoughts are abstract. When it's hosted by Catholic Dad, who knows what's gonna happen?
Hey, what's up, fam?
Different points of view and highs and lows. A new perspective everywhere you go. Open up your mind and drown out the noise and see if this connected.
What's up, fam? To connect generations and situations about faith, life, and whatever comes along.
Expect runaway thoughts like a runaway train. Break into conversation like links of a chain. Make a Hail Mary pass, hope this connects. Have a question for a guest, put it to rest. Live a life of holiness, lead by example. Follow at Catholic.Dad and Mini Tangled. Christ leads our way, he's the good shepherd. Pray for one another, be blessed and be there. Different points of view and highs and lows. A new perspective everywhere you go. Open up your mind and drown out the noise and see if this connected.